Okay, so I'm looking at the values of the collar and looking at the different ways the shirt can be done. And I like to put a lot of my focus on the face and to make the clothing or anything else more of an expression. So, in this portion of the lesson, I want to talk about blending. Now, what I'm doing is taking the Mars yellow with a little bit of the cat red light and a little bit of water, and I'm mixing it into the layer that I did prior to this when I was focusing on what color I want it to be. And I'm always maintaining those two things. So I got a flat brush turned to the side and just putting a little bit of value in there, like dark value. So I'm always focusing on two things, the value and the color. That's very important. Value and color, just backing up and making sure all the darks match the reference, all the light matches the reference, and all of the color matches another color on the portrait. So the blending stage to me, along with the color stages, are the ugly stages of the portrait because you're you're kind of putting paint down to figure out what you're gonna mix that paint with. So here I'm blending the underneath layer where the nose is, and I'm like looking at the reference, and I'm okay. This needs to be warmer, or this needs to be cooler, or this needs to be smoother, or this needs to be rougher. And that's all blending is about. It does. Sometimes you're like, okay, I need to. This needs to be a little bit more watery, or this needs to be a little bit more thick. And how do you know? You know based on the touch of the painting. You know based on the texture. You know based on looking at it and backing up and just analyzing it. Like, all right, this needs to be blended a little bit more wet so it can be smoother. This needs to be blended a little bit more thick because the painting, a lot of paint isn't going on there. And I don't mean super thick. Thick is just the opposite of wet. And wet is just a lot of water on a brush. And wet has variations and thick has variations. I'm gonna let you watch for a little bit. Okay, I'm taking a flat brush and I'm thick. I noticed that the value was incorrect, so I'm blending in more of that pinkish, reddish skin tone where I mixed like a little alizarin crimson, a little bit of the Titan buff, and a little bit of the Mars yellow in areas on a reference that I see isn't blended the same way that my painting is. Now the thing is when you blend the the tones, a lot of times you, for lack of better words, mess up the painting. A lot of times you hit an ugly stage. Reason that this is okay is because it's all done in layers. So this huge part of his neck, it's okay to overwork that for a moment just to get the value of the color right. Because if you don't, and you just leave it that way, let's say I would have left it red, it becomes very noticeable that something about it seems off, that value is incorrect. And I'm gonna give you an example. If you look at, this is a great artist who was really good at portraits, and they weren't even realistic. Go look at Van Gogh's portraits, and you'll notice that, just think of these two things, value and color, and you'll notice he was very consistent with certain colors, very consistent. Like you see how the neck just got warmer. How I said it's gonna go through an ugly stage. I'm trying to get it back to the color that it needs to be. So Van Gogh, for example, I have a warm neck, and Van Gogh he would be like, okay, if this neck is gonna be this warm, or if I need to blend it here to make this color, everywhere that this color shows up needs to be that color. So if you look at some of Van Gogh's portraits, you'll see, for example, his shadows, you'll see a green shadow. Then you'll look everywhere else. Everywhere he'll have that same green or a blue shadow. And it's something that takes you a while to start to notice. This is why it's so good to go to museums. Because some people don't notice it at first. But the more you look at artwork, you start to see that certain artists are just so well versed in making value and color create value, making color create value and value create color. And like I said, I had to fix this neck because it was not matching. Um, for example, the neck in the photo looks close to the color on the side of his head, but my neck wasn't matching that color, so I just had to get that in there. And now I'm adding darker values, but this is blending. So this is a wet, very wet, darker tone because I'm doing a darker value, and I'm blending it into dry paint. So it's almost like a glaze, so to say, also. So I'm taking that dark tone and just watery dark tone and just darkening areas that are dark. Now that I'm satisfied with the the tone and the value of the neck, and blended in those colors that I saw on the side of the head, I'm gonna go back in there and just slightly blend in tones that I notice, like tones that I notice. Okay, in this little spot, this may be a little lighter, this may be a little darker, and I'm just blending everything together. It's still wet. You can tell by the look of this video that it's still really wet. Okay, now I'm gonna purposely fast forward through this and let you see the spot painting, lower neck area, just showing you how blending is done, like in every little space, the lip, just constant layering. That's how you have to think of it. Like you remember how light and washy I started off, and it's just constant calculations of where I need to be lighter, where I need to be darker, or what color.